By 1948, an outbreak of the deadly disease poliomyelitis killed thousands of people, most of which were children in the U.S. The development of the first successful polio vaccine by Jonas Salk forever changed medicine and society by relieving widespread fear and anxiety around the disease. In the short term, the widespread distribution of the vaccine resulted in a significant drop in cases, from 58,000 in 1952 to under 1,000 in just a few years. In the long term, the success of Salk's work grew the public's trust in vaccines and led to the near eradication of polio throughout the entire world.
Dating back to the ancient Egyptian era, polio had started to spread and infect many people. Polio is an extremely dangerous virus because once infected, it is incredibly difficult to recover from the fatal symptoms of the virus.
Polio is very infectious, and in fact, almost all children were infected with polio before vaccination. So it's transmitted either by the respiratory route, so it can be carried in the nose and in the throat, and that's usually only carried for a few weeks. But it's longer in the gastrointestinal tract, so it can be transmitted via fecal-oral transmission also. So obviously, hygiene is key to prevent that.
And by 1952, there were almost 58,000 cases in a summertime. From there, it spreads into the bloodstream. And unless the virus is neutralized in the bloodstream, it can spread on into the nervous system, into the spinal fluid, and up into the brain.
The majority of whom would have to use a wheelchair or crutches for the rest of their lives, and almost all infected individuals had difficulty breathing. While there was a slight possibility for experiencing weakened muscles and lungs, treatment was extremely expensive. Often, those who infected with polio would use a device called the iron lung, a cylindrical chamber with a vacuum system that would change pressure and push air into and out of the lungs. It quickly became apparent that children were more susceptible to catching the disease, often being called infant paralysis, and many worried parents kept their children inside to protect them. Paul Alexander is the oldest known polio survivor who has been living in an iron lung since 1952.
I lost all of my movement, period, because he would swallow, and I would stop breathing. Enough to scare them to take me to the hospital where they pronounced me dead.
Polio is believed to have existed in the U.S. since around 1894, but it began to spread like wildfire in the 1940s. It was a highly contagious disease and affected millions of people. Over 500,000 people were paralyzed or died from the disease, and the world was in dire need of a cure. Jonas Salk was born on October 28, 1914, in the East Harlem section of New York City. He was born to Daniel and Dora Salk, who were Jewish immigrants from Russia. He was the eldest of 3 children, and as a child, he was interested in anything related to human anatomy. In 1931, Salk attended City College of New York, and he was the first person in his family to ever attend college. In 1934, he attended NYU School of Medicine, and Salk graduated with the highest honors in his last year of medical school. After medical school, Salk worked with Dr. Thomas Francis Jr., a well-known scientist in the field who taught Jonas Salk the ways of developing a vaccine. Salk first worked on developing a vaccine for influenza, but when the epidemic hit the U.S., he started developing vaccines for polio.
In 1948, Jonas Salk led on the initiatives of polio vaccine development that was sponsored by the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis. The project initially aimed to identify the various strains of the polio virus that was making its way across the nation. Over time, the project expanded to discovering a vaccine against polio. For the next 7 years, Jonas Salk and his team attempted to develop a vaccine for polio. In previous years, several attempts at developing a vaccine for polio have been made. However, all were unsuccessful and in some cases created more polio variants. According to the National Archives in 1946, the city of Antonio, Texas, used DDT, a dangerous insect pesticide that is extremely harmful to humans, in an attempt to prevent further outbreaks. Every inch of the city was sprayed in DDT, in a misguided effort to kill insects they believed carried the disease.
With war-discovered DDT and special sprayers, sections of the city are literally fogged with the insecticide in the fight to stop the spread of polio.
Jonas Salk bore a sense of responsibility for the polio vaccine as its creator, and chose himself and his family to be the first human test subjects in order to ensure its safety. Salk hoped that his choice to make his children and wife the first human test subjects would demonstrate to his confidence in the vaccine and gain public support and trust. By 1954, clinical trials on 1.3 million American school children began for Salk's polio vaccine. Initial testing of Salk's vaccine in 1954 showed 60 to 70% prevention, receiving widespread praise from the public. The vaccine's successful announcement occurred on April 12, 1955. Strongly believing that ensuring public health was a moral commitment, Salk actively advocated for it to be mandatory in the U.S. to get a polio vaccine. Salk had no personal interest in profiting from the vaccine, and when asked about patent ownership, he answered,
"Well, the people, I would say, there is no patent. This is... Could you patent the sun?"
With the widespread adoption of the polio vaccine in the US, there was a remarkable decline in the number of polio cases, experiencing over 50% reduction each year. The heightened demand for the vaccine became evident, as within just a month, a staggering 5 million children got vaccinated. With over 58,000 cases in 1952, within just a few years, there were fewer than 1,000 cases. By 1959, the vaccine had reached approximately 90 countries worldwide. In 1979, polio was fully eradicated in the US, making the US the first country to achieve full eradication. The global implementation of the polio vaccine has been instrumental in eradicating the disease on a worldwide scale.
In the long term, the polio vaccine's success not only represented a groundbreaking achievement in Western medicine, but also increased confidence in the effectiveness and reliability of vaccination among the public. The vaccine was freely distributed across the nation, and almost every single individual got the vaccine. Today, America is fully eradicated from the disease, and many other countries are too. The polio vaccine laid the foundation for modern vaccine development. Salk's method of developing vaccines has been integrated into many of our current vaccines, even being used in the development of an influenza vaccine. Jonas Salk's commitment to public health extended beyond vaccines, influencing personal hygiene standards. Salk recognized the importance of personal hygiene in reducing the spread of diseases. In 1963, he founded the Jonas Salk Institute for Biological Studies, which is still running today, researching diseases and helping the world.
In 1948, tens of thousands of people, especially children, were infected with and suffered the deadly symptoms of polio, such as paralysis. At the time, there was no known cure for polio. Even the origins of polio were unknown. Many people, including Jonas Salk, were working to develop a vaccine.
The success of the polio vaccine marked a revolutionary breakthrough in Western medicine, but also boosted public confidence in the vaccines. Today, polio has been fully eradicated in the US, and Pakistan and Afghanistan have the only recorded cases of polio in the world. This could have only been achieved if not for everyone's trust in the polio vaccine. We should remember and honor Salk's legacy and dedication to humanity. Despite the availability of effective vaccines, a large number of individuals are against getting vaccinated. It is only through the collective efforts of the global community that we can ensure widespread immunization and ultimately safeguarding public health against infectious diseases.